So, Nigeria's new president. Everyone wants the inside scoop, right? We took a deep dive into his first media chat. And wow, this guy doesn't hold back.
No, not at all.
Let's just say it's interesting.
Yeah, interesting is one word for it.
We're working from Takisatories. They had a great summary of the highlights.
I saw that. Really helpful.
And it's a lot. We're talking fuel subsidies.
Yeah.
That stampede during the aid distribution. Even his thoughts on cabinet size.
It was a highly anticipated media chat, for sure. Everyone was waiting to see what he'd say, set the tone for his administration, you know.
Exactly. Address some key concerns.
Right, so let's break it down. What he said, what it could mean for Nigeria, the whole 9 yards.
Okay, let's jump right in.
Sounds good.
One of the things that really stood out to me, he talked about palliatives. For those who don't know, it's basically financial aid. And he said he's been distributing them for 25 years without any problems. But then we had that awful stampede at the aid distribution event recently. Seems a little contradictory, no?
Yeah, that's a really good point. And his response to the stampede is really interesting. He blamed it on poor organization.
Right.
Which makes you wonder about the government's ability to actually manage social welfare programs. Is this a sign of a bigger problem or just a one-time thing?
Raises a lot of questions for sure.
It does.
And then there's the whole thing about finances. He insisted on only using Naira, which is Nigeria's currency, and he defended having a big cabinet.
Oh, yeah, that was interesting.
His reasoning was, well, a bigger cabinet means he can keep an eye on everyone more easily.
Right.
Honestly, I was a bit surprised by that.
Yeah, I mean, you have to think about the context here. Nigeria's economy has been struggling. The value of the Naira has been fluctuating. There's worry about corruption and government spending. So his comments, you could see them as a way to reassure people.
Like a show of control.
Exactly. I'm in control. I'm committed to Nigeria. I'm watching everything closely.
Interesting take.
And it makes sense. He needs to address those concerns head on.
Absolutely. And speaking of finances, he's all about pushing through tax reforms, but also made it clear that any borrowing would be for capital projects only.
That's a tricky balance, isn't it?
Seems like he wants to have his cake and eat it, too.
It could be seen as a focus on infrastructure development, which, on the surface, sounds good for economic growth, but then you have to ask about debt. Will these projects really benefit everyone or just a select few?
Yeah, we've seen those big projects go wrong before.
Unfortunately, yes.
And what about his agricultural plan? 2,000 tractors. And he's promising to get rid of all bandits and terrorists by 2025.
Ambitious, to say the least.
More like a moonshot, right?
I mean, look, past attempts to improve agriculture and security in Nigeria, they haven't really worked. There's corruption, poor infrastructure, all these deep-rooted issues.
It's a tough nut to crack.
It really is.
So how is he going to solve those problems while also boosting production and security? Can he actually break this cycle?
That's the million-dollar question.
And then he took aim at corruption. Said he seized assets from someone corrupt, promised to go after corrupt civil servants.
Makes sense. Corruption is a huge issue for Nigerians, so showing he's serious about fighting it is important. But the question is, are these just words, or will he really follow through?
Actions speak louder than words, as they say.
Exactly. And tackling corruption, that's a long game. It needs real commitment and political will to see it through. It's not going to be easy.
It's a marathon, not a sprint.
Exactly.
And we can't forget about fuel subsidy removal. He's standing firm on that one.
Oh, yeah, that's a hot button issue.
He even told a story about a friend who used to drive around in multiple limos, but now drives a fuel-efficient car thanks to the subsidy removal.
Right. Well, the economic argument for removing subsidies is strong, but it can hit the poorest people the hardest.
That's a double-edged sword.
It is. So it's about finding that balance. Can the government soften the blow for the most vulnerable? It's not just about the economics. It's about social fairness.
So big promises, bold statements, a glimpse into his leadership style. That's what we got from this media chat. But it also leaves us with a lot of unanswered questions.
It does, and that's the key takeaway here. What does this tell us about where President Tinubu wants to take Nigeria? What does it mean for all of us who are interested in Nigeria's future? These are the questions we need to think about, dig deeper into.
And if you want more analysis, different perspectives, Takisatories is a great place to start.
Absolutely. They've got some great content.
So that's our deep dive into President Tinubu's first media chat. A lot to unpack, a lot to think about.
Definitely a lot to watch. Let's see what happens next.
Until next time.
See you then.